without further ado, let's jump into the main event today, which is Critical Role episode 62 of Campaign 3. And we are going to jump into our handy dandy recap. And for the uninitiated, we recap every episode, cut that out, and host it separately on YouTube. So if you find yourself on that recap right now and you want to see our full discussions, it'll be linked down in the description box below. But so, yes, episode 62, A Long Walk of Reflection. We pick up with the crew following the Wind Cougar en route to Hevestros. And we've got a bit of a traveling, I guess montage isn't a fair word, but a little traveling section. So, per usual, Matt has people roll for the day of travel. And on the first day, they step into the Serratus Wilderness. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that correctly. And Emily Axford rolls a 17, which leads to an uneventful day, easy travel. Uh, Come nighttime, they send all of their mini familiars that they have now, Pate, Mother, and Dinios, out to look for a place to camp, and they eventually find one. Um, Once there, Bordor scavenges for some berries. Denise kills a rabbit with her bare hands, and Ashton asks Orem if he could teach him how to meditate, which Orem does. So there's a nice little scene here where Orem says, sometimes you just have to take a moment, quiet your mind, and stop worrying and just find yourself. And Ashton says that, yeah, I'm not a big worrier because if you never stop, you never have time to worry. And if you do stop, well, there's always booze and people. So Ashton, for the first time, really is taking a moment to kind of think about their situation, what happened to them, the Hishari, everything that's going on right now. And that's why they've decided to try to meditate so that they can kind of recenter. Um, Again, like I said, this is a great scene between Orm and Ashton, and both are kind of just talking about their fears right now, but both decide to just focus on getting their friends back, as that's kind of one of the only things that they can control right now. Also, this night, Prism tries carving some runic magic into Bordor's crossbow. So she carves a fourth level dragon's breath into the bow, and this is kind of only possible because of the innate magic of the solstice that's in the air. We don't know like to what extent, but Matt does say that that's kind of a reason why this is working. Um, Denise actually is the one to go test out the crossbow after she does this, and she shoots an arrow, and it basically spews out this cone of fire, like flamethrower status. But Matt actually has Emily roll for this, and I can't remember what she rolls, but it was kind of low, and because of it, the crossbow actually catches on fire. They're able to put it out and take care of it, but we basically are told that um, she's going to have to roll to do this type of magic, and it might end up destroying whatever it is she's enchanted. We then have a little bit of a Bordor kind of training montage where the group's hyping him up. They want to see, like, hey, test out your new spells that you have. So they make a little training dummy for him, and he, I think, casts Firebolt on it and, disintegrates it essentially. And they're like, well, what else can you do? And Bordor actually asks Ashton, like, hey, do you mind if I, like, touch you? And Ashton's cool with it. So Bordor casts Calm Emotions on Ashton, and Ashton actually feels like some peace for the first time in a while. And so then Bordor casts Calm Emotions on everyone. And then he goes and curls up with the Wind Cougar as the little spoon to fall asleep for the night. Um, on to the second day. Amy rolls for this day, and she actually hits a nat 20. So it's another uneventful, easy travel day. But because of the nat 20, Matt actually has Amy roll a d6, and she hits a 5 on this. And because of this, the party in their travels comes across this crater that's full of flowers. And after some investigation, they find a petrified skeleton like embedded into the stone here. So the group kind of works together to extract the skull of this skeleton, and Prism casts Identify on it, revealing it to be a Githzerai. Um, Definitely be talking about this in the discussion. They also realize that um, this crater kind of impact here should have just like disintegrated any mortal being like this. So there must have been some arcane element that like somehow protected them, even though they're dead to some extent. And that's when they realize there is a ring on the corpse of this skeleton. So they get that. Prism identifies it as well, and it is a ring of volcanic flesh, which basically allows some fire damage to be reduced and also dealt depending on the circumstance. And Ashton takes that for now. Prism finally gathers that with her investigation that this crater has been here for a very long time, possibly hundreds of years. Um, so they move on that night. They find another place to camp. And basically, all that happens on this night is Ashton has this pipe that when you smoke it, the smoke forms into like your greatest accomplishment, your
Yeah.
proudest achievement. So Ashton gives this to Prism to smoke, and she does. And the scene that forms in her smoke is of a young Prism in the Shadow Realm, basically being this understudy to this mage that visited the Shadow Realm. And she made herself so indispensable to this mage that they eventually were like, hey, come back with me to the Cobalt Soul. And that's how she got started with them. Um, The only other thing during this night is Orem, during his watch, notices these little wisps and these eyes staring at him from, outside of the campsite. But they're oddly comforting. And they come to realize that these are the spirits and the sprites of the Eidolons, basically, playfully sharing this space with them. So there's this great moment where Orem kind of like lets go a little bit and dances with these spirits. And he basically notes that, even in these dark times, there still are moments of happiness to be found. On the third day of travel, we have Utkarsh roll a 16. Once again, a nice traveling day. And a couple of things that happen during this day is Bordor asks about Imogen and about the rest of the group and how powerful they are. And Laudna briefly explains her history with Imogen and says they're sisters from another mister. Um, Prism then brings up like, hey, I got that scry spell from Abadina, so like if we want to scry, I can do that. And so they attempt to do another scry on Bordor's brother, this time focusing on a sling that he has. So they have a vision, and there's this cabin in this heavily wooded area, but it's empty and dark and kind of looks like it's abandoned. So Bordor wonders if the solstice maybe teleported his brother just like it teleported him, but he is happy that he at least recognizes the house this time. They then decide, let's save any more scrying for tonight once we're done traveling. So they do just that, finish their day's travel, make camp, and then try to scry on lewdness, but unfortunately the spell is blocked as he has some sort of arcane protection. That night, Bordor asks Sladna again how strong their friends are and if they could really stop a god. They then talk about lewdness and Predathos and, are we really going to, try to stop him from doing this? Do we care if the gods go away? This kind of same conversation that's happened a few
Right.
times recently. Um, And basically, it boils down to, hey, Exandria is going to change one way or any other.
Right.
But at the very least, Ludinus should not be the guy making this decision. So we
Right.
need to stop him. Bordor finally says, like, I can't promise I'm going to join you guys for that fight. Like, this sounds dangerous. I just want to find my brother. And Denise is like, I just want to find Dariax. And Orm says, I don't blame you. Um, Bordor then grabs the pipe from Ashton, the one with the special smoke, and smokes it. And the vision for him is just the day before, when Bordor is practicing on the target dummy, and everyone's like real proud of him. It's apparently his greatest accomplishment. More on this in the discussion as well. Um, but so everyone then goes to bed. But in the middle of the night, Orm gets up and plants his sword seedling into the ground and kind of prays to the Wild Mother. He says, I don't know if you can hear me anymore, but I hope that you can, and I hope you still have some fight in you because we could really use the help. And the rest of the evening goes by without issue, and that takes us into the break.
Yeah. So coming back from the break, we come back to Denise wanting to roll a sleight of hand check to take something, though we don't know what. We also know that Prism assists her. Emily basically saying, I think I know what you're doing. And Matt basically goes and gets a whisper from Denise on what exactly are you trying to do. She is successful, but we're not quite sure through what means. But essentially, in this back half of this travel, the party continues to follow the cougar, which, by the way, is getting cougar names of popular cougars. So every day the cougar has a different name, like Susan Sarandon, or, that's the one I can think of. But they're following the cougar. They do come to this place. I think Matt called it the Irium Canyon. And essentially, Pate and Dinios are sent off to look for. I think at one point they came across the. Did you mention the blue flowers earlier, or was it in this section?
I did not.
Okay. Well, in general, they're going to be looking for these blue flowers. It's going to come up again. But essentially, there's a great conversation from Pate where there's conversations around Pate and Dinios, like, could they be a great pair or a great couple, or maybe mother would be a great pairing. And even some great back and forth from Pate themselves to Ladna. But essentially they find their way to this canyon and they have to decide how they're going to get down into the canyon. The cougar, the wind spirit, just walks right off and walks down to the base of the canyon in a very wind cougary spirit way. Ladna basically informs the party like, hey, I can feather fall us to get us down safely, but it's not going to work for all of us unless we want to do it in batches. Prism is going to cast Enlarge on Mother. It's not the first time she casts Enlarge. She also casts it earlier in this episode to make a fish that Border catches much larger. But casts Enlarge on Mother, and Orem is essentially going to hang glider Mother down to the base of this canyon. The party, they make their way to the bottom with some scrapes, and a couple of them have a couple of owies along the way. I think Prism jokes that she rolls both of her ankles and then immediately casts False Life on herself to get some of those hit points back. But they eventually come to a large mossy hill, and along with a waterfall leading to this body of water that sort of splits off into two different paths. The party's immediately suspicious. There's a lot of jokes about playing Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom specifically. So people were like, I have RPGs on my mind. And so they do check behind the waterfall for anything hidden. They don't find anything. But Prism is going to, I don't remember what she casted exactly, or if it was a perception check of some kind or investigation, but essentially discovers that there is something interesting happening here, not with the waterfall, but specifically the hill. There's something illusory about this hill in front of them. Also, keep in mind too that Denise has a whip of warning. It's a magical item that will warn you when there is danger within 30 feet of you. And Matt describes the whip as warming up, and essentially they know that they are near danger. And as they even get closer to this hill, it gets a bit stronger, this sensation. So Pate is sent to investigate, and along the way discovers this cave that has sort of been carved into the mountainside that wasn't apparent at first glance. And Ladna, looking through Pate's eyes, sees that there are these runes that are inscribed on the mouth of the cave, but it's in Primordial. She doesn't speak Primordial, so she's not sure what it says. They do find out that Ashton, however, does speak Primordial. The party decides to head towards this cavern. Ashton casts Pass Without a Trace, just because they know about this whip of warning, letting them know there's something dangerous nearby. They have absolutely insane stealth check rolls. And as they pass by the hill, Matt describes like a low groaning of some kind. Like there was something about this hill. It's living in some way. But because of their amazing stealth roll, Matt jokes that they make it to the cave without alerting this hill. And he jokes that, there's one encounter that will never see the light of day, apparently. So we don't know what it was, but I will say once they get to the mouth of the cave, Ashton reads the expression And I don't have it in front of me. I don't know if you have it in front of you. Um, if I
I do have it. Let
if I
me.
click
I don't
on
know
it,
if I
it's
have
going to
it
change
quickly.
my screen. It's going to mess up the recap. So
Yeah, I got it.
okay.
Within the verdant tomb, we keep her spirit enduring.
Yeah, and they're not sure, could this be the hill? Is this something deeper in? One thing they do notice within this cavern are these bright crystals, these gems that sort of litter the cavern. And Border's actually going to, with a nat 20, pop one off. And it's kind of like, this is kind of cool. Like, what's this for? Prism is going to take it and cast Ray of Frost on it to see like how it kind of works with magical energy, and it immediately refracts the Ray of Frost and shoots out in all different directions. And they're like, wow, should we take more of this? And Denise mentions that she has some kind of kit where she could, but then she's like, well, we don't know who's here, like who lives here. And they actually talk about like, is this somebody's home? Is this like somebody's place? To the point where even Bordor says to Ashton, like, hey, in Primordial, can you say that like, hey, we're here? And Ashton's like, hello, we're here. That's it. And he says it's in Primordial, but there's no response. As they go deeper into the cave, it appears to be a living area of some kind. However, it's not clear if it doesn't look like people just like got up and left, but it also doesn't quite look like someone was just there. They're not sure how long it's been, but at some point, this was a living area of some kind. They go deeper into the cave. They come into this large room with a big green obelisk and more of those gems littering the walls. And they come to realize this is in fact residuum that is seemingly growing naturally in this cavern. And
Well, I think it's like residuum. I don't know if it. We'll talk about this more, but
okay,
I don't know if it is residual.
I think, well, my impression was they know residuum is refined, but that this is some kind of like naturally occurring
Yeah.
version of it.
Yeah.
Like we said, we can talk about it afterwards. They're looking everything over. Orem, with his incredible perception, is looking up towards the ceiling, and in the ceiling among the crystals, he sees a face that smiles or seems to smile. And that is where the episode ends. Episode 62 of Campaign 3 of Critical Role. And don't forget, if you're watching just our recap, you can check the link for our full discussion down below. Otherwise, we're going to jump on into it. So
Let's do it. Good job, my friend.